Us with a little bit more on the crisis unfolding in Afghanistan. We've got Washington Post senior editor Mark Fisher. Hello to you, Mark.
Good evening.
Okay, before we get to the bulk of the story, I do want to touch on this push right now to get about 200 journalists to safety. Where are you? Have you heard anything? And have you heard from your journalists?
Well, we're certainly in contact with our reporters on the ground in Kabul, and they're doing fine. But there's a larger group of these are translators, drivers, cooks, people who have worked to support American journalists from the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, Afghan nationals who are now desperate to leave the country for fear that their lives are in jeopardy because they were working for American companies. And so these newspapers have appealed to the State Department and the White House for assistance in getting these Afghan nationals who work for American companies to safe ground and to flights out of the country to their own safety.
Let's try to get some insight into just what has transpired in recent days, because despite years of training, billions for weapons, equipment, and support, Afghan security forces just folded like a house of cards. The Taliban fighters, they have pickup trucks and rifles. Afghan government forces had helicopters and planes and armored vehicles paid for by us. Is there any insight into how and why those Afghan forces just fell apart so quickly?
Well, they went where they saw the power going, in addition to which they were helped along by payments. Our reporter on the ground came up with a lot of evidence that there were payments being made by Taliban forces to the Afghan army and Afghan military. And so a lot of those soldiers simply melted away from their units and either joined the Taliban or simply deserted their own units. Now, that should not have been a surprise to anyone. Any Americans who have been involved in training the Afghans over the years would say that this was a very tall order. It never really worked. There were problems with the cultural differences, problems with the fact that many of the Afghan soldiers were there for the money. They were not committed to the cause. And so, as the president said in his speech this afternoon, this was a force that was not committed to the fight, and therefore, why should the Americans who'd been working on their behalf for all these years be committed as well?
Interesting. With the Taliban now in control, this could help organizations that have looked to cause damage here in the U.S. through terrorism for years. So how high is a concern right now, given that we've got the 20th anniversary of September 11th right around the corner? What's the level of concern are you feeling right now?
There's considerable concern both among the American military and intelligence agencies who have said from the beginning that if we left Afghanistan, as the last 4 presidents have said that we ought to, then there would be a period of real unrest and disarray, and that the possibility of the terrorists using Afghanistan as a base once again might be revived. Now, the Trump administration did have talks with the Taliban in which the Taliban agreed not to be a host for al-Qaeda-like groups in the future, but the Taliban's word is not exactly something that you can go to take to the bank. And so there's tremendous fear that that is exactly what might happen now. So the question now for Americans is, what are our intelligence capabilities on the ground now that our military has left the arena? If you listen to the folks at the intelligence agencies, they say that they are still able to get in when they need to. Our military is able to strike when necessary. But obviously, that's going to be a lot harder now than it was just weeks ago.
Mark, if you would just remind folks how we got here. Why did the U.S. withdraw now?
Well, from President Bush to Obama to Trump to now Biden, we've had presidents saying that we needed to pull out of Afghanistan as soon as it's reasonable to do so. And they kept putting that off, and they kept saying, well, let's maybe add some more troops because maybe we can get this Afghan military up and running so that they can take care of themselves and defend themselves. And so it seemed to be extended over and over again. Then President Trump put his foot down and said, look, we're going to withdraw. And he had very controversial talks with the Taliban, and there was an agreement that the Americans would leave. But President Trump never fulfilled that promise, and he left office without having accomplished that. Biden came in as someone who had opposed the American the American presence in Afghanistan for many years, and he was determined to get it done, and now he has. And it may strike many people as a fairly botched exit. The horrible scenes that we're seeing of people fleeing for their lives, these are really wrenching scenes, And there are many people who are indeed, who do have reason to fear for their lives because of their opposition to the Taliban. But nonetheless, the base question here that 4 presidents have asked is, is this a justifiable cause to ask Americans to put their lives on the line? Initially, it was to protect us from terrorism. Then it became kind of an exercise in building a democracy, building a nation, an exercise that I think people in both parties would agree was doomed to fail.
All right, Mark Fisher with his insight today from the Washington Post, a senior editor there. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.